What is up, everyone? Pittsburgh White Shorts coming at you again with another video. Something a little different this time. Today we are going to do a dual tournament report for Chicago and Toronto BCS, which we attended. I am joined today by Brian.
What's up?
And, as well as Niko, guest from Burn 1.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And we are just going to go over our rounds in both tournaments and sort of a conclusion we all came to between these events. Something we want to talk about our deck picks. So, guys, what did we all bring to Chicago? We all brought Kanata, right?
We're all on Kanata,
Yeah.
I believe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every single one of us.
All three of us.
Niko
What a
able to borrow it from our other local Zach. Couldn't join us tonight. But yeah, we all queued Kanata. Varying different levels of success. I don't think we were all completely unsuccessful, but unfortunately not good enough to make top cut at that event. But we'll go into our rounds pretty quickly here. We're gonna try to fly through these since again we didn't top, but just sort of recap our experiences. We'll get right into round one. We'll go around the room with round one, then go to round two, etc. We'll do it that way. Okay, so my round one, I played versus 8 Standby MTI. Played against a lot of 8 Standby MTI this tournament. I was out a ton really early, and I skipped level 1. But thankfully, I was playing a deck that didn't care about that at all, and sometimes that's preferable. Double Kanata, took the game from there, pretty standard, even though I completely skipped level 1. But not too hard. I think this matchup in general is pretty easy, so long as you immediately answer the level 1 board and don't get stuck on a second level 1 turn. Thankfully, I didn't have a level 1. I went from 0.5 or 0.6 straight to level 2, so it didn't matter. Brian, go ahead.
All right, yeah, not a lot to say for me. I had a buy card, so I didn't play round one.
Oh, what a
Oh,
cheater.
look at this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, I didn't do much round two either.
Mm-hmm. All right, Niko.
Well, so for round one, I played against Don Machi, just the standard door pants build. Not too much to say. I did Kanata Marin's game plan. The dude seemed pretty inexperienced. He was reading his cards and stuff. I set up the board, but sometimes you get white stiffed, mainly in the case your opponent cancels and you do not. So despite setting up Kanata Marin, I got to loop it, I think, for another turn, and then trying to kill him, opponent just refused to die.
Yeah.
So I immediately get sent into X1. So rough start.
Okay, round two. We'll just skip Brian, since again he was too busy eating breakfast or whatever he was doing.
I was pacing around with Tanner, but yeah.
So I also played into 8 Standby MTI again. This game I actually completely stole. This game went terrible for me. I couldn't resolve anything. My 0 was bad. My 1 was bad. Get hit to 2. Played on 2 Kanatas. Try to bring the game back. He cancels. Things are going really, really poorly. My opponents at 2, either high level 2 or they're already at 3 and they just took a pass turn because they didn't hit climax or something. I can't particularly remember. But then I just remember slamming down triple Marine and just killing them and completely stole the game. I remember my Aqua got Liliad, and it was my only thing that would have kept me in the game. And then I also skipped level 1 in this game as well. But again, Marine's a really dumb card that needs to be limited. But thank God she's not, because I stole this game off of her. Another 8 Standby MTI victory.
All right, so I played against 8 Bar Hololive. It was using Okayu level 1, and then I forget what level 3.
Probably the Aki, the burn 4.
Yeah, I think so. This wasn't really a game. My opponent just actually didn't cancel at all. Game was over in about 3 turns. There's not really anything to even talk about here. I got Kanata out, but my opponent's I think that game ended when I was 2-2 and my opponent just died.
Okay. All right, well then we'll just go to round 3. I played against Mashiro Book, Lisa Pants, Bang Dream. Outside of the non-standard level 1 package, it was a pretty standard Choo-Choo centric Bang Dream build. I didn't get to play level 1 at all this tournament so far. This game was no different. I got smacked to 3 early. I made a call to like dig to get tap counter because my opponent whiffed their Choo-Choo condition due to canceling. I believe they like left the climax over deck and then canceled twice, which screwed them out of Choo-Choo. But I was one card off from digging it to like send it to graveyard. I had to make a read of my opponent holding a climax, and I swung over deck for lethal on that turn, and it stuck, and I was able to take that game. But that was also kind of like a steal. Did require like my opponent to be out. They had like a 2-card deck. The climax could have easily been in there, and I was like, well, Lisa always holds because they don't have a way to cantrip into their climax, and this guy's thinks he's like more ahead than maybe he is, but he was still ahead of me, and thought that he could hold the CX and not die. And I was like, no, we're just gonna try to crack you over deck and kill you, and it worked out. But you know, another struggle game. But you know, sometimes your opponent needs damage. You make the right call.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, you actually had a game this time?
Yeah, I got to play. Round 3, I played against Choice Pants Mushoku. It was a pretty standard game. I hit level 2 before he did, set up my Kanatas. Once I hit level 2, I stuck a bunch of free damage, shot him up to 3 before he had a chance to prepare. He had to sandbag a turn. He couldn't do anything. And I just had a clean Marine finish from there. So pretty solid round for me. Sitting 3-0 at this point. Things were looking good, but as Carmen said, none of us topped, so things can't stay good for long.
Niko?
Yeah, so this round I played against State Standby Quince. Doing pretty well. I was able to answer his board more or less every turn. I don't think he got Nino, or he did get Nino off the 1/1, like turn 1, but it didn't really like do anything for him. I was able to set up Kanata and just kind of crack his board every turn, and a couple times he was forced to crash into me. He was managing to hit brainstorms, so unfortunately, like I couldn't actually fully deplete his hand size up until the last couple turns of the game. But on one of the last turns, I try to kill him. He survives, and then at that point, he has almost 0 resources, to the point where I think he has like 1 card on the board and 1 card in hand. So he draws, clock draws, manages to like top deck. I think it's like Icy Tail and like something else. And then Icy Tail hits 3 on like a brand new uncompressed deck, and I just kind of died of vanilla swings. I was like, damn, that's so sick. That was my experience. Yeah, my opponents were just too strong.
All right, going into round 4 then. This is the first game of the day where I had a level 1 turn. The downside to this game is I was sitting across from Clinton, which is always an experience. The game was actually going totally fine, totally normal game, until I hit my Kanata turn. I was in the classic Kanata situation where I can either spend my resources to mill out my deck to ensure an at least okay refresh. I mean, I'm still low level 2. I have no clock compression. I don't have a lot of stock because I'm going to spend it, but I could choose to mill out and like only leave maybe like a 1 or 2 card deck and like only have 1 Kanata. And I was like, well, no, it's slime. Even though it's Clinton's slime, it still doesn't push a lot of damage in the mid game. It's going to focus on healing. It's okay. I'm gonna play down my Kanatas, and I'm gonna gamble on leaving this 1 CX in like a smallish deck. And if it works out, I just take the game from here, and I'm poised to pretty much win because of like how the matchup goes. Pretty normally, because like you know, Kanata really hates on other decks that spam early plays, because if they try to double early play like Slime normally does, you just anti-change 1. They can't hand on core it. Usually works out pretty well for you. However, I triggered. I triggered on like first attack. It was really bad. Didn't even have a way to like crash and pay it out, like hedge my bets or anything like that. And you know, I had my Kanata board. And I was controlling the game. Clinton sees I trigger a CX. He clock draws. He gets a book. He slams the book, and I go like all the way up to 3. And from there, the game is just over, because even if I catch up in damage, when Clinton gets the pass back, his version of Slime can throw out damage. And because I was not very compressed, as is Kanata issue, I ate it all and died. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's just the That's the thing with Kanata. It wasn't like a bad loss. I wasn't like upset about it or anything. I made a conscious decision to gamble on that, and had it worked out, it would have been great for me. But Kanata's forced into those situations a lot, and we will get into that later. Don't want to harp on it too much now.
Mm-hmm.
But lost that one. Brian, go ahead.
All right, so my round 4, I hit the nightmare scenario. I sat into the Kanata Marin mirror match. I had a pretty strong opener. As in my round 3 game, I had a solid level 1. I hit level 2 first, played down 2 Kanatas, had a pretty solid board state. My opponent did the same, and then I just ate a million damage. I hit level 3, threw down my Marines, went up. I was at 3-5. I had no other choice because Kanata Marin can't heal back down to 3-0. Shot my opponent up to 3-6, but they canceled a few times too many for me, and I could not get there. And that is the Kanata Marin matchup mirror match in a nutshell. Is the player who eats that chunk of damage first is usually the one that loses, and that is what happened to me.
All right, Niko, how'd yours go?
Okay, so for round 4, I decided to go to the casino and lose like $700. That was
Okay.
pretty sick round 4.
Okay. Well, Brian and I will just kick back and forth for the rest here. So we're both at this point. Are we both X1 at this point?
X1 at this point.
Yeah, we're both 3-1. So I'm shaking it off, not too upset, just like whatever, it happens. Going to my round 5. This is the first game that actually went my way. I had a good opener, good level 1. Everything went good. This was against 8 semi MTI. Hit 2 first, set up my Kanatas. My opponent literally could not do anything. And I was actually canceling this game because I was able to leverage my early game. I had the ability because my opponent was stuck at 0 due to some unfortunate early cancels. He was stuck there, and I was able to actually generate like some amount of compression and be on top of my deck state because I had that extra stock threshold that you normally don't have when the game goes fast. And then I was able to just completely run away from it here. The amount, this is where it kind of struck me that with the amount of buy cards in the bracket, that even my X1 might not be good enough. But the fact that Clinton was my only loss and he was still XO at this point, sort of like kept me going through the rest of the tournament. So it was just carrying on from there at 4-1. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, yeah, my round 5, I sat across from Pantsbook Slime, not Clinton, just a different Pantsbook Slime player. I had a solid lead early. I hit level 2 first, as Kanata Marin does. I set up my 2 Kanatas. Had a pretty normal lead into my endgame, but I could not get into 3 Marines on my finisher turn. I could only get into 2. And I'm pretty sure that extra burn 2 would have won me the game, but there was no way I could have done it. She was in my deck. I had no extra dig, and I ended up losing that game, and ended up 3-2 at that point. So at this point, with the number of buy cards in the bracket, going X2, my run was pretty much over. But I was waiting for Carmen anyway, who was still playing. So I stuck around for the rest of the event and played it out.
All right, I went into round 6 against Damachi. I was very happy to sit across from Damachi because I think that these builds that are not running the eyes early play and are only like running 3 bombs, which is typical, you can kind of run away with it because the bells usually don't get big enough. They only play 1 early play, so you like fog that one, have another counter for another one, go again. It's usually pretty easy so long as they're not on eyes. But the only way that Danmachi wins this without the eyes is like unironically cancel diff, and that's exactly what happened. Like the most stock my opponent ever had was 4. They were just like spending stock on a ton of stuff. They were like wealthing and brainstorming every single turn. They only ever had like 4 stock. They did have like full hand, and like sometimes they had field. Sometimes they were forced to crash lanes, but like they just canceled everything despite not being very compressed. And I just lost on cancel diff. That is just why sometimes it happens. I had a good game. I had everything set up my way, and then just I did not cancel, and my opponent, despite not being very compressed, canceled every single thing. They were doing the classic, the strong Danmachi player, where they refresh, and into their good compressed deck, they immediately torch 4 clean, and then cancel on 2. That's how you know you're playing against very powerful
the good
Danmachi
players.
The very strong Danmachi players, where they torch you on every single attack for literally no reason, and it always gives them the cancel. And I go, great. I love when my opponent can play blackjack successfully 4 times in a row, and then I lose every turn, every attack. But it's just white. Sometimes it happens. I was basically donezo at this point, but there was only one more round left in Swiss, so I also just played it out. Brian, do you want to go over your last 2, or?
Sure, yeah. I mean, round 6, I played against the Stock Soul bottom decker Beaufry build. Not much to say here. My opponent bricked out. I triggered a couple crits, stuck him for 1 million. He spent 2 turns early swinging with 1 attacker. Not much to say there. Just pretty handedly ran him down.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Round 7. Yeah.
Yeah, round 7. I sit across from Broderick, who's on 8 standby Mushoku. Again, I'm happy to see this matchup. I don't think Kanata Marin is unfavored at all. I controlled the entire game at every single level, at every single point. Broderick never had more than a 2-card hand from level 1 onwards, because I don't believe he was able to Eris combo even once. If he did, it was only 1 Eris. Broderick plays a thicker level 1 lineup, specifically to hedge into the mirror and some other stuff, which is really sick, but I think it kind of hurts him in this matchup in terms of dealing with the board, because I don't really care. I'm just going to go to 2 and kill your stuff anyway, and then those cards become kind of dead because you can't get up to the Kanatas anyway without the board. But none of that matters. None of controlling the game matters when you never ever cancel. Broderick, he had stock. He might have not had hand or board, but he did have a stock overhead, because he was kind of just crashing in, as MTI is forced to do. So he wasn't uncompressed, but he still canceled every single thing that I threw at him. He was not capable of eating damage. He was too powerful. So it doesn't matter how much you control the game, if you just don't eat, don't cancel anything, and you just eat all your damage. But yeah, I just kind of played it out as a formality, and I like playing against Broderick. He's a homie, so that was at least fun. But it's kind of a frustrating through line here on the day. I think everybody in the call can agree. But how'd your last round do, Brian?
So the last round I played into Standby Door Slime, the Rimuru Standby level 1 into Milim 2-1 Door. The Milim 2-1 combo is, I guess, 1,000 power for each of your other characters, so sits at 10 full field. And on attack, if you have the door out, it mochas for 2. This particular game, I was out all 4 of my stock souls early, so I wasn't able to Kanata. I couldn't get into my stock swap or my climax swap. So I spent the entirety of my early game tri-fielding and slamming door, and that somehow won me the game. And that left me at a respectable 5-2 for the day, despite the fact that I lost 2 early and had to climb up the back of the bracket.
Yeah, I ended 4-3. Pretty upset with the deck's performance on the day. I feel like every game I won, aside from 1 or 2, were games I stole. And all the games I lost,
does that, yeah.
All the games I lost were games where I was controlling the actual game state, but the damage was not in my favor because Kanata does not compress particularly well. It hedges its best on controlling that game state, but that just not work out in this event. A very converse experience to what I did in Bro, where I piloted the deck to top 8. But then looking back, and you're after the tournament, you're kind of sitting there, you try to look back at everything objectively. You really do have to run really hot. You have to
absolutely.
Yeah, you have to have to win any tournament, to make top 8 at any tournament. You have to not only make all the right plays, but you also have to have luck on your side that day. And I think Kanata demands that even more sometimes, because you just don't have compression on your side a lot of the time.
You don't actively compress. You're playing for your giant board and hoping that's enough
That stranding your opponent out of stuff.
ruin your opponent's game plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes even that works, even especially against Mishoku. I don't know how many times against Mishoku I'm choking them out, destroying the game, but I lost to Mishoku in the last round by just eating damage. It's still possible. I mean, Roy's also done it to me like twice now on whole live mid game builds that like can really like choke out their opponent's resource, and it really doesn't matter if you just never cancel and eat everything. Which is like pretty frustrating. I think it's a problem that all these mid-game focused Hollow Live decks unfortunately have, where they're very powerful and they can control the game state very well. But if you're not like hyper compressing, you're just not canceling. Rushi has a little bit of an easier time doing it because they play a traditional level 1 and they play Azusa. But Kanata has a much rougher time being on top of its deck state, which is a little unfortunate. But I guess we can just hop right into Toronto, right? Greener pastures. We had 2 weeks. A set came out, a little set called Attack on Titan Final Season. Between these, I, along with Jason and one of Jason's locals, Steve, all decided to queue the same deck after doing a week and a half at most of shotgun testing, where we were testing before Chicago, during Chicago when we were there, and the week after that, and like 2 days. That was all the time we had to refine this list. And we all brought the exact same list, which was 8 door AOT, which is what I was on for the event. Brian, you brought the same list, Kanata, correct?
Yeah. So in Pittsburgh, we have 2 locals a week. From the time we got back from Chicago, we had 1 week worth of locals before deck lists were due for Toronto. I did a little bit of testing on a different Hololive build, which didn't work out for me. And I had nothing else prepared, so I stayed on Kanata for Toronto, and what a mistake that was.
Should have believed in Okayu, buddy.
Yeah.
Niko, what'd you take?
I had the pleasure of Carmen providing me with a door quince.
Prage
Quince.
Prage Quince, yes.
Prage, yep.
That is practically Itsuki Waifu. For those of you not in the know, that is the door combo at level 1, which is on attack, discard any card, check up to top 3, add every character you find there, or an event that the deck doesn't play. And then the finisher, which is on play, draw 2, ditch 1, on attack, ditch 3 characters, I believe. Yeah, 3 characters.
Yeah, 3 characters.
Burn 1, burn 4. So pretty destructive finisher, pretty traditional 1k1 deck. So we will get into our rounds from this tournament as I pull them up here. Does anybody else different? Brian, you start this time. Change up the order.
So I did not have a buy card for this event. I probably should have held my buy card from Toronto, or for Toronto, because there were significantly fewer buy cards running around. There were still
1/3 the amount, by the way.
Yeah, there weren't like 15 of them like there were in Chicago.
It was like 18 in Chicago to Toronto's 6. Pretty ridiculous disparity.
But yeah, my round 1 here was a travesty. I draw up. I have going into my level 2. I have the sickest hand ever. I have 3 Kanata changers, 3 Kanata 3/2s, and a Stock Soul as my 7-card hand. I draw up. I have 1 Brainstorm in the back row. I need 1 more card to hit my full field condition for Kanata combo and clock into 2 more climaxes. So regardless of what I do here, I don't have enough stock, or I do. I have 4 stock. I Brainstorm. I whiff the Brainstorm. I can't get into a 4th playable. Played on my 3 Kanatas anyway to heal, but can't resolve the combo and lose the game off that. So that was unfortunate.
Niko, you can go. You can go next here.
Oh God. Okay. So for my first round opponent, I get to fight our good buddy Steve from New Jersey. What a powerful human being.
Also on 8 door AOT.
Yeah, so he's 8 door AOT, I'm 8 door Quince. So this guy is struggling the entire game. Like, I think he gets like 1 climax combo off. He's out like 6 turn 2, but because I'm a bad player, I cannot draw any climax to punish this man. So he manages to like really dodge a lot of the pain. He goes back pretty uncompressed, actually. I think he was maybe like 1 in 4 or like 1 in 4.5. But, you know, as is the standard a lot of the time, he just kind of looks at you and says, Niko, I'm sorry. I'm no longer going to be taking damage despite my uncompressed deck state. And that's kind of what happened. He was at like 2-1, and just kind of triple canceled me. I believe it was like 3 turns in a row. But that's
Damn,
okay, because
wrong.
I still managed to push a little bit of damage. And I was getting ready to gear up for a finisher turn. The problem, and Carmen told me this is not a problem, um, is despite drawing and going through about 10 cards on the first turn I was alive, and about 9 cards on the second turn I was alive, I could not find a climax.
Sounds like you need
So
to shuffle
Steve,
better.
yeah, so shut the hell up.
It sounds like a skill issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steve, he was probably dead those 2 turns, but because I could not draw the proper climax or a climax swap to punish him there, he got to live. So we're starting off with the next one, which is pretty painful. At least we lose to like somebody that's not like, drooling on the table.
I queued into yet another team kill. I queued into Sam, Chicago from the Discords. He won the first bro with the infamous 5 standby 3 choice Dow list. He was on 8 standby Quints. I whiffed combo, but Sam had like my level 1 combo, but which is like kind of fine for this deck because you have 8 doors, you can like deal with it. But Sam had an absolutely terrible game. Having to attack twice some turns. Like he would get his 2/2 Nino out and be like, okay, I have a chance if I can hand encore this card and get back into the game. You know what's really good at stopping your opponent from being able to come back? Connie and Aaron early play, both of which stopped Quince from being able to hand encore their 2/2. Sam was able to save his 2/2 one turn because Sam is a sneaky man and he runs 2-1-0 2K counters, which are not common in Quince. He surprised me with that. He was able to back up over my Connie the first turn, but I was able to salvage that Connie and just like continue from that point on, killing his stuff over and over and over again. He could never come back. Also, a good thing to remember is that Armin is hexproof, and your opponent cannot bracelet you. Sam did try to bracelet me to try to get it in that turn to like come back at the end, and I was like, no, you cannot target my card with bracelet. You are going to
I
die.
hope he didn't let him take him back.
I did not
Just for
let
the
him
true
take it
punish.
back. No, because
Oof.
if he somehow lived the next 3 attacks of incoming damage while at 3-4 and I lost, I would have been very salty if I let him take it back. So I did not. But it didn't really matter. He just died on that attack anyway. So Sam just had a really bad game. So another unfortunate team kill, but I did win my first game, which was nice. All right, round 2. Brian, go ahead.
All right, round 2. I'm 0-1. I queue into old school shot door Gurren Lagann.
What?
Not much. Yeah, the Kamina level 1, into Simon level 3. It's not a modern deck. Kanata was way too big for him all game. So choked him out, killed him off with Marine. Not much more to say there. Pretty standard game doing what Kanata Marine wants to do.
Did they play the merge stuff, or was it
played the Gurren Lagann merge? Yeah, the off finisher
Okay.
and the Seaman finisher. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, cool to see that deck still being played.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't have a great matchup into Kanata Marine. Doesn't hit over anything.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Did catch one of my lanes with a 2-1 Adachi, because back then they didn't have the 1-1s, but
Yeah.
wasn't enough.
All right, Niko.
All right, so for this match, I queue into 2 soul, stock soul Beaufry. So it's like the information warfare thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the freest matchup of the day. Level 1 was a little spooky. When he hits level 1, he slams the 2 soul. I'm like, all right, let's see if first deck decides to fuck me over or not. Ended up, I think, either double or triple canceling him, and then just kind of from there, he can't recover. It's like my deck doesn't rely on early plays. My deck's not board based, so even if he plays Frederica down, I just say, "Yo, that's pretty funny," and I just move on with my life.
Yeah.
Managed
You don't
to
really
triple
care.
Eatski him, and yeah, like not a lot of decks can survive triple Eatski.
That deck.
Especially,
Yeah, Beaufry really relies on seeing the board-based matchups, of which there are a lot. But you 8 door Quint's kind of your worst nightmare if you're on that list. Something that just literally does not care and has a 9-card hand some turns.
Yeah, so just really unfortunate for him, but yeah, you couldn't do anything.
All right, I queue into Kanata round 2. I had a poor open in terms of level 0s. I believe I only opened a Brainstorm, attack, but my opponent had a good open and cracked me straight to level 1, which was nice because I was, set up, draw level 0s, and you mulligan right, and going to draw 1s and stuff, so I was able to combo off, and then I was able to grab a gear, and then combo off again the following turn. So I was really set up. I was able to mill out my deck, had a good compression. I was able to pick up Aaron, EP, and Ymir, which is like GG against double Kanata if they're not like pretty set up. My opponent unfortunately whiffed their full board condition, which made it very easy to get over. They still had counters, which was like counters live, which kind of like made it scary, but I guess they did not have them in hand because they weren't able to pick anything else up. So I killed those off. They were still at 2, but they couldn't put another Kanata board together. They did ended up doing like a single Marine on their level 3 turn, and then I just went in with Sasha and Gibby and killed them. Pretty simple game for me. Ymir is really good at dealing with Kanata turns. Just always have it available if they stay at 2. You're not very afraid. All right.
Yeah, round 3, I played into the typical Don Machi deck. Nothing of note really up until level 3, where we I think went back and forth. I think we both comboed each other 3 times at level 3 back and forth, just like both mega canceling. Until I managed to get there with one Marine I had left on the field that I managed to top deck a door off the top with. But other than that, it was a very standard game until we both spent those 3 turns comboing each other at level 3. I did end up winning that game.
Niko?
All right, so for round 3, I queue into Kanata Marine. My opponent kind of ate shit, and he leveled up to 2 really early. Still managed to field double Kanata despite like minimal hand fixing. I then proceed to answer his Kanatas with a Memory Adachi, and then I force a counter into another lane because he has, I think, no Brainstorms at this point. So his Kanatas are like pretty weak and fairly easy to crack over. But the name of the game was pretty much kind of like the nightmare scenario for Kanata Marine, where even after you think you have board set up, your opponent cracks your board, forces you to burn resources, and then you're just not canceling damage. He just at a certain point, though, I wasn't canceling damage either. I ended up having to like side attack with one of my Itsuki finishers, and then to get like an extra attack in, and then fronting for game, and then he just kind of died.
All right, I queued into Quince again.
Scary.
In round 3, the game went pretty normally for me. Outside of like I triggered a ton, like I was triggering 1 or 2 times a turn. I mostly had stockouts and wasn't punished for it by still canceling. My deck state was never like too terrible because AOT has some like pretty meaningful like 1 and 2 card stockouts to like pretty get around that situation. Going into level 2 in the mid game, I swing in with like an Aaron early play to get rid of a 2/2 with a climax down with the Mikasa combo, just to like mill a little bit to like manage my deck state going into what might be a finisher turn. My opponent is fairly compressed, even though like they lost their Nino. Even though they lost their Nino every turn to Connie, they just like always had another Nino standby. Classic good players being able to put their Nino back out every single turn despite losing it and not being able to encore. My opponent ate a 4 that they probably shouldn't have. And even though I triggered a door on the following attack, leaving me with, I believe, either 1 or no climaxes left in my like 5 to 6 card deck. And I still have like Mikasa, or I don't have a Mikasa mill at this point because I had already done it. Like I milled, triggered the door, and I was like, okay, I'm crashing this other lane here. I can like maybe pay it out or something like that, and I'm just like, okay, they just go to 3, and I'm like, okay, well my opponent went to 3 when they shouldn't. They have clean cards in their grave. I'm gonna have access to Fumio because it's up here in my stock. So I'm actually just not going to pay this out when I otherwise would. I have like 2 climaxes in stock, 1 buried from before, 1 buried now, either 1 or 0 in deck. I can't particularly remember, but like basically guaranteed to go to 3. I'm like, he only has this many resources. He is not going to be able to push for like a very good kill, and like Icy Tail isn't going to do anything to me either. So I am just going to play for a stronger finish return off this, and just like not spend my stock so that I can like guaranteed kill him. So that is what happens. My opponent like tries to combo off for like a sort of reserved push because they had a standby Nino in the back row. So they were able to push for like, I believe it was single or double combo. I canceled like once. I went to like 3-4 or whatever, but my play was correct. I used Sasha. I picked up Fumio. My opponent had like 2 climaxes and like a 20 card grave. I shoved the whole thing back in their deck. Proceeded to double combo and just murder them. That play is really good. And again, Armin is also really good when your opponent's only out in those situations as Bracelet, of which I was tracking all game. I knew my opponent had one. So Armin's really good when they can never use it.
Mm-hmm.
So I won that game. Moving into round 4. Brian, go ahead.
All right, round 4, I played into 8 standby Mushoku. My opponent got to level 1 and stayed there for a turn or 2 longer than I would have liked them to. They built up a massive Ghislaine board that I had trouble dealing with when I hit level 2 to play my Kanatas down. Other than that, I played a standard Kanata Marine game into the end game, up until the point where, as Kanata Marine does, I ate a large chunk of damage, got shot to either 3-4 or 3-5. Had to throw down 3 Marines and pray, and unfortunately, I just didn't get there. My opponent canceled 5 of the 6 instances of damage from my finisher turn and proceeded to finish me off the following turn. At this point, I am 2-2 in the event, and my Toronto run is pretty much over.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Niko?
Alright, so I also queued into 8 standby Mushoku for round 4. My opponent ate a little bit of damage, but he was still able to like set up boards and stuff. The problem with Mushoku, I think, like against 8-door Quints, the proper like back row configuration and the like, I was just kind of able to answer his board more or less every single turn and be about like 500 power over everything. So he was just kind of losing everything, and he wasn't hitting standbys as often as he'd like to. He had a really bad turn after refresh. You know the classic, like, refresh, like, double, triple trigger, and then you're just like, I guess I lose the game. So I identify that, and then I just kind of proceeded to kill him from 2-4 with double Itsuki.
Okay. Alright, round 4. I queue into the mirror. There are only 3 mirrors in this 117-person room. Which is funny, because my opponent, SPTCG Jason, also queued into the mirror later in the tournament. So all of the 8-door AOT players played a mirror at some point, which is like a pretty ridiculous like low roll to have happen. The mirror is fine. You don't really care about each other for the most part. The difference becomes who draws more gears, who had the better game. Jason definitely had the better game here. I was triggering first attack every single turn. The first turn it happened, I was like, okay, fine, I'll just bury it. Like, 1 climax gone, it's not that bad into the mirror, like, whatever. And then it happened again, and again, and again. I'm forced to pay out. I have good stockouts, and I'm keeping up for the most part, but Jason is able to just, like, play the game. He always gets to float at, like, 7-8 stock, because he doesn't have to pay out, and I kind of do, because now I'm on the back foot here. He starts to cancel after refresh. Things are going bad. He refreshes with like a ton of stock, a full clock, a decent hand size, at least like 4 lanes on board, but only 5 climaxes, and then triggers 1 off the top with 4. I take my opportunity to, like try to get him with the Fumio, because he like levels his clock into grave again. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to steal the game, Jason. If it happens, it happens. And I do almost get there with the same play, like Sasha. Grab Fumio, double Sasha combo into Gibby, and just could not get there. He was 1 swing away from dying, lived at 3-4, and then cracked back at me with triple Sasha and killed me, as is expected. I was able to like memory kick 1, because of course on my finisher turn I triggered a bunch of doors too, because the game, it was just my game to lose. But it is what it is. I wasn't too upset. It's just like your one loss is to another good player on what you know is a good deck because it's yours. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Let's just rally. Let's just keep going. Especially because there weren't as many buy cards in this tournament, so I wasn't feeling too bad. What Weiss be Weiss sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So just moved on. Get into round 5. Brian, did you keep playing or did you drop?
I did. I played for one more round. I played into 8 Pants FGO Mash Waifu, the Negsoul changer deck from the new set. Nothing really notable happened in this game except for the turn my opponent went for their mash combo. They played down 3 of the mash 2/1s, slammed a climax. I ate everything. It was between 10 and 12 damage that turn. I shot right up to 3/4, and then was sitting across from 3 mashes that were giving my lanes -3 souls in each. So I had no way to even crack back with my attacks the following turn. Of course, ended up losing that game and then dropped following that.
Unfortunate.
Shout outs to that fake guy.
Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci guy.
Leonardo da Vinci guy.
All right, Niko.
Alright, so round 5, I hit like a really bad low roll. The matchup I'm playing against is like 8 standby Quince, but I think he almost could have probably played anything, and I would have probably just imploded anyway. Could not draw a climax to save my life. The one time I was able to draw a climax, I had 1 climax combo, and then I proceeded to mill 3 into a brand new deck and mill 3 doors, and went down to a 2-card hand size, so I was like, damn, I guess I lose the game now. Yeah, I managed to somehow recover into managing to get like double Itsuki onto the board. But at that point, I'd stand by Quince is already kind of like has board dominance, and I know he's holding bracelet because only one bracelet ever like made it back into his refresh, and he never like triggered one. So I'm like, all right, cool. Hope he dies, and he just didn't die. But yeah, so X2 now, pretty down about it, but like nothing I really could have done. Also, one other thing for you guys, please do not ask cards in hand climaxes in waiting room more than 2 times a turn every single turn of the game.
My round 5, I sit down against 8 standby Quince again. Pretty happy to see it. Pretty normal game. Connie did his job well, especially because I got the opportunity to save him with gear to run him into a lane to force my opponent to crash, which was awesome. Like, I was like riding high all game off that. Unfortunately, my opponent, another strong player, was able to continually keep getting the 1 Nino climax to continue putting out the 2/2 over and over and over again. But I mean, that still hurts them. They can't keep it on. It keeps their damage pushed down, which was the important part of Connie being around. Because I was able to kill like 3 2/2 Ninos with Connie, like 2 with 1, and then 1 with another one that I played later, as well as Aaron EP. Again, I think this matchup, like, one of the great things about playing 8 door AOT is I think you have a very good matchup in 8 standby Quince. So I'm doing well all game. We get down to the end game. Get into my final deck. And I go, okay, it's time to do the Sasha combo. Like, my opponent, yeah, another situation where I have a very good line for Fumio. I clock draw. I don't get the climax. I get the wrong one. The Sasha climax is not in my grave. I like have the stock threshold because my game's been going well to Arm and Brainstorm. I Arm and Brainstorm and I whiff. There are no Sasha climaxes in my grave. There are no more 3/2 Armins I can get to dig additional into more climaxes. I don't have the like Sasha climax swap because that is also still on my deck to be able to swap into the right climax. So I'm just locked out of it and I go, okay, I have the wrong climax. I still have my Fumio. My opponent is it like 3/1, only needs to eat 2 3s. I'm going to shuffle 20 clean cards, like something like ridiculous, like 16 to 20 clean cards into his deck and swing 3/3/3. He can't bracelet me. We're going to get there. I proceed to do that. I slam. My opponent cancels all 3 swings, even after Fumio. Like a ridiculously thick deck with only like I believe they had 7 at that point, but it was still a very thick deck. They triple cancel me. I'm like, whatever. I still double triggered on that turn. of course. Still don't have Sasha Climax Swap to pick up, so that kind of sucks. There's a Sasha chilling in my back row for the next turn. I live. My opponent's swing back. I'm able to, I believe, memory kick. No, I'm not able to memory kick this game. But I'm able to live. Drop again. I am at 3-5. I have a 4-card deck. There are 2 climaxes in my deck, and the Sasha Climax Swap. I clock. I draw. I draw neither the correct climax nor the Sasha Climax Swap. But I go, okay, it doesn't matter. My opponent has nothing in their deck. Their deck is still thick. This is just easy 2 swings for game. Yet again, I swing in and my opponent double cancels on 1. And I was like, okay, great. I can't believe you did this 2 turns in a row. Sometimes you get weist. It wasn't like this was this is another very good player. This player also made top 8 off of killing me. I was still in the bracket because I didn't want to give Jason bad tiebreakers or anything like that if he needed them. So I played out after this because if my only 2 losses are 2 good players who are poised to make top 8 and are still doing well, because Jason was still doing well and this player also did well. Don't want to share names I don't have the liberty to share. But I knew that they were likely going to make top 8, so I stayed in because there were only 6 buy cards being claimed. X2 did have a chance to make it, so I played it out despite this low roll. So these were my 2 losses on the day. Spoiler alert, and they were both just to kind of getting weist. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes your opponent cancels like crazy, and sometimes you just have a really bad game. So it is what it is, as they say. So on to round 6. Yeah.
Yeah, having dropped, I was watching that game over your shoulder. It was that was rough.
Sometimes you get Ultra Instinct canceled, dude. It just happens. All right, Niko, since Brian had dropped by this point.
All right, so once again, shout outs to this fucking Leonardo da Vinci guy. Round 6, I queue into 8 pants, fake Grand Order. I don't know what any of his cards do, so I have to read everything. He just hits me with dude, I love MASH, and I love Leonardo da Vinci. They're my favorite characters. So,
strong.
Pretty rough start. I don't know what his level 1 combo does because I don't see it at all. And I play into triple on-reverse salvage. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then I read some of his other cards, and he has this early play package from this 2-1 support into a 3-2 mash that gives neg 3 soul. So I was like, oh, that's not good. What ends up happening is he manages to set up mash. I managed to answer one of them with a memory adachi, but I kind of have to just in general blank that turn because I can't do anything because he has neg soul in some lanes. But then, classic happens. He goes into a brand new deck, doesn't have a great board setup. He has 1 mash that has climax combo, so he has neg 3 soul in 1 lane. But what happens is he brainstorms, hits 3, and then double triggers. So I'm just like, oh, damn, that's unfortunate, my man. You're just kind of dead. And then I proceed to play down double Itsuki, and he just kind of dies. I think I killed him from 2-3 or something. It was pretty ridiculous.
Okay. Damn. Poor run for MASH guy. Shout out to him. He was right.
But, apparently, this was first event. So that guy
That's sick.
Made it.
That's sick.
Made it fairly far.
Respect, yeah.
Huh. Playing an off-meta deck too. All right, my round 6 was against Kanata Marine. This was going great for me in the early game. I 0-1, and then I completely skipped level 2. So I had to play the game from level 3, which really sucks. But thankfully, my opponent was not able to full Kanata combo. They had 1. And they didn't pick up any counters, which was very weird to me off their Kanata. Either that or they didn't Kanata combo. I believe they just didn't pick any up. And I was able to look through their grave, see that they didn't have any counters available. They were out all 6. And I just read that they were only on 6, that they weren't on double, tap counter or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make this read because this is my only chance now because I'm behind. I'm able to pre-field a Sasha behind memory kick because I had a lot of resources and stuff from having a good early game, and you always have the 1 Sasha on hand. But pick up that, I grab the memory kick, and I'm able to sit there, even like after smacking him to 3, and he can only like single marring me or something like that. I believe it's like single or double marring. I'm able to memory kick over that with like an Armin in the back row to keep my Sasha on board, and then just crack back with triple and kill him. So that was nice. You're able to the deck did fine playing from like a level behind with just like healers, and being able to play down Gabby as a healer is always nice if you have the green. But yeah, kind of a scary game, but thankfully my opponent also had a run of bad luck and the game kind of equalized. But yeah, round 7, Niko. How'd your last game go?
So I got to do another team kill round 7. I queue into Dan from New Jersey. He's playing Choice Standby Adventure Time. The only thing I have on my notes here is accelerated game state. If I remember correctly, the game went by really, really fast. There was not a lot of damage canceling, but then I started to cancel damage and he did not. At one point, he stood by out a Finn and Jake in the back row, and I proceeded to anti-change it, forcing him to pay 3 because I did not want to. My deck wasn't like super great, and I didn't want to just randomly die from him playing down another Finn and Jake and just killing me. It didn't really matter though, just because Dan was kind of struggling with deck management for most of the game, and he just ended up dying to Eatski. Unfortunate.
Burn 1, burn 4, pretty good at that.
Yeah.
My round 7 was also a quick game where not a lot of canceling happened. 0 to 1 fairly normal. I had gear at 1. I was against Botan Rushia Hololive, which is like just a different flavor of Cornet Rushia, different kind of search combo. If they have a good first deck, that can be pretty spooky because they're ripping 2 clean cards out of their deck, as opposed to like possibly 3. They can like rip possibly 6. But Botan has to get like 1 reverse, stuff like that, and I did have gear. It was nice. I was able to deny a Botan, so my opponent had to play a pretty low hand. The game got really fast from this point because I ate 6 again and went straight to level 3. Thankfully, my opponent was also eating. Took their Rushia turn to summon another Rushia. I had like 1 extra turn to like summon another card. I believe they didn't summon Rushia. They summoned Marine to heal because they were also eating. So they only had 1 Rushia down. I was able to get Aaron out to take a turn at 3 to get the Rushia off the board, I believe, in this matchup. Memory here's a little hazy because like not a lot of this stuff mattered because we were both eating so much damage. But at the end game, I remember in those games where you eat a lot of damage, the climaxes can only be in one place. They're at the bottom. So my opponent swings in, triggers once. There's like 3 in a small deck. I hard play a Gabby, heal off the green. I clocked for turn to play the Gabby, and then Icy Tail hitting all the climax, or hitting 2, then getting the cancel out of there, and then swinging over for game when my opponent's at 3-3, just swinging like 2-2-2 in every lane. So pretty spooky there at the end. Just those accelerated games where just like you and your opponent just start eating damage out of nowhere and just start like floundering to try to get anything going. It kind of sucked to go out on a game like that for like both of us at the end of the day, but I was able to clutch that one. So I ended 5-2, which was
I also ended
nice.
5-2. Yeah. Had a much better time playing 8-door Quince than I did Kanata Marine.
But yeah, let's talk about that. So we had 4 total runs with Kanata Marine over 2 tournaments. Brian on it twice, us on it once. So what was I've probably spoken about it enough. What do you guys think about playing Kanata into like a long tournament format?
My play style. Yeah, I was like, does not fit my play style. I don't think I would ever want to play that deck in like a truly long tournament and then a top 8 after that. Just because I know I'm never lucky enough to just be able to just like cancel damage when I need to.
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit when going over my matches, but the fact that once your Kanata's down, or once your Kanata's come down in that deck, you don't have a lot of healing for the rest of the game. So if you do just eat some random chunk of damage, which oftentimes you just do because you're not super compressed with the deck, you just get shot up to mid-level 3. You can't heal back down because all you can do is play down Kanatas to heal, and you need that stock to play your Marines. You need to try to end the game. And if your Marines don't get there, you're out of luck. That's all you've got. So you have to rely on walling out and hoping to drain your opponent out of resources to win the game, while also managed to get a couple lucky cancels on a not necessarily super compressed deck, which can be an issue.
Yeah, I think that sums it up for me. It's I think for me it with Kanata, conversely to Niko, Kanata is exactly how I like to play White Shorts. I like to play these mid-game heavy strategies with maybe a more muted finisher, because I feel like that's where you can leverage a lot of skill expression in the game to take a lot of games you otherwise wouldn't be able to when they like go fast or something like that. You're able to sort of slow the game down, dictate the pace, drain your opponent out of resources, and sort of just strand them out by like making good reads, making good calls, knowing the meta. It really rewards that kind of play. But the converse to that is like, none of that matters in a game that's completely dictated by damage. You can't win the game by stranding your opponent out of resources. Not like, it's not a game where true control really completely exists. You can't control out the game all the time. Sometimes you just eat the damage and you die. And for me, that happened in Chicago, where it was like, all these games I won, I was struggle bussing and won completely off the back of Marine being stupid. And all the games I lost, I was quote unquote winning all over the board. My opponent didn't have anything. They were running on fumes, and I just didn't cancel it all, and I died. And I'm like, well, I'm sick of this, because this is a meta where when stuff like that happens, right, and you need to try to make a push to come back, you're playing into a meta of a ton of defensive counters and stuff that can stop you, which is like, the feather that those decks get for not having, that strong compression, that like typical good White Schwartz game plan of like compressing, having cards in clock, refreshing on time, things like that. When you don't have that and you're just sort of relying on controlling the game state, but then on the other hand, when you have to try to come back when bad things happen, people have tap counter, people have neg soul, people have like effectively money counters and things like that can stop you. It can be really frustrating. So I just wanted to go to something far more normal, something very stable, something very traditional, which 8-door AOT performed in spades, because Jason's one local was able to make top 8 with the same list, and then Jason also went 5-2. So we had 2 5-2s and then one top 8 with all running the same list that we had very little time to work on, and we're able to get that together and all perform very well with it. So hopefully that deck's on the map. Probably not by the time this video goes up, but I have done a deck profile with Jason, which should be on the Strictly Broken channel at some point, where we go over all the cards, we go over our thought process, and sort of how things went. I know we kind of compressed our rounds. A lot of things happened. Like I know I have a lot more detailed notes than that, but we wanted to sort of mash both of these together because, struggle with BCS season. There's not a lot of time between the events. Brian talked about it. We had like a week and a half between events to like come back and get our deck list together and go for the next event. So it's really hard to just sort of push this kind of stuff out unless you don't intend to go to another event immediately after. Which thankfully now we have about a 2-month break between Toronto and New York, which was recently announced. So we have some time to get back to set reviews and other content, as well as make stuff like this. But I just wanted to talk about the Kanata Marine thing, because we all had similar experiences, and we were just like, damn, gotta switch off, gotta find something new. Brian, I'm sure you do not intend to be playing Kanata Marine in New York?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't have played Kanata Marine in Toronto if it wasn't such a fast turnaround. I just couldn't find anything else to play instead, and it had been doing okay for me up till that point. So
just like back when I was playing Bro, man, I was so high on Kanata Marine. It's so fun, it is unique, but looking back objectively at my Bro rounds, what really went differently, and the difference was at Bro I ran hot. I ran hotter than I ran Chicago. In Chicago, like my games didn't go much different. I had the same games where I was struggling like any deck can, and then came back on the merits of my finisher, which is the standard 1k1 bad game got there thing that any deck can do. And then the games that I lost, I was controlling the game, but then ate damage and died. And the difference in Bro was that I just didn't eat the damage because I was running hot. I was having a good day. And that's just really the difference there. Like no amount of skilled play, correct decisions, right meta calls can save you from eating 4s and 5s that maybe you're even at your lower compression still unlikely to take, but I mean like when you're 1 and 4.5 as opposed to 1 and 3, like standard 1 decks try to be, and you get cracked, you know that's a higher chance you're gonna eat that damage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And eat it and die. And when you have to play 7 rounds into a top cut, that is a lot of opportunities for those bad things to occur.
Yep, that's the long and short of it.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other closing thoughts on like the BCSs we attended? I think we all had a great time. I think the tournaments were for the most part run pretty well. Chicago had the hiccups at the beginning, where
they repaired like twice at the beginning in Chicago, but other than that, I think the events have been pretty pleasant, been run pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
There's the ongoing issue of NA being the only region. If you guys are not aware, NA is the only region that has to submit deck lists 2 weeks in advance, or 10 days in advance rather. I want 9 to 10 days in advance. Every other region does not have to lock into their deck until the night before the tournament, which is, in my opinion, a massive problem. I didn't really notice it much until because the meta was static for a while, until AOT came out, and it had a very small window in which you were able to figure out what you wanted to play, submit it, and take that deck to a tournament. I have brought this up throughout the community. Connor, Bonestone Sync, has contacted the office about it, the SG office, as well as both myself and one of Jason's locals have also reported it in person at the Toronto tournament, and we confirmed that one of the Toronto judges, I believe the head judge, was drafting an email from my complaint when he went up to also make a similar complaint about it. So maybe we will see remediation for that for New York, but I'm not holding my breath. Thankfully, there are not a lot of meta-impacting sets coming out between now and New York that are legal. SDS comes out like that weekend, but it is not legal for play, no matter what happens with that. So thankfully, that is not an issue for that tournament specifically. But that is definitely a problem with BCS and NA this year that I hope never happens again, because it is extremely frustrating. It creates an artificially less diverse meta, because when people have to travel multiple hours or like across the entire country to play at these events and take expensive flights or spend a lot of money on gas and getting room and board and stuff like that, why would you ever even think, why would it cross your mind to bring something that you didn't test into the ground, that you weren't completely sure of? I think that like myself, Jason, and Jason's local are patently insane for bringing a deck with so little testing and vetting to an event like this with like 117 people, 7 rounds. That's kind of unheard of, but we saw a niche that the deck could exploit, notably that being that Armin is broken and that the deck was very stable. And we decided to blind queue it and see how it went. And thankfully, it went very well, and our meta reads were correct, which is always nice to have. But that is not typical. And the representation of AOT decks at the event, of which I believe there was a single-digit number for a set that just came out for a beloved anime property that you would expect to see a lot more of, and an event, is very telling to this restriction being a problem, and I hope it is rectified.
Yeah, I mean, again, like 1 week of preparation, or maybe 2, from when the set came out to when registration was due for Toronto. So not a lot of time for testing there.
Yeah, my biggest problem is that it's just completely artificial because other regions don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have appreciated 2 extra weeks of testing prior to Toronto.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody got any last stuff? Niko, any shout-outs?
Yeah, shout-outs to my boy Carmen at PGHY Shorts.
Yo.
Wow.
Both for housing me and for providing me with the deck in Toronto.
And the deck in Chicago.
Providing me He didn't provide me. That was Zach.
Yeah, it was Zach.
Yeah, you were playing Kanata in Chicago.
No, that's true. That did happen. But yeah, I think that's it. If you are going to the New York regional, we hope to see you there. We met a lot of people at these 2 regionals. Some people at both regionals back to back, which was really cool. It's always cool meeting people who enjoy the content. We really appreciate it. It's good to see people out there in person that say, "Oh, I watch," and it's fun. So that's always cool to see. So with that, Pittsburgh White Shorts signing off. We will see you all in the next one.